Hello everyone, now you might be thinking, what's this video? And guess what? I'm here to tell you exactly what it is. Some of you might know, but we have a service called bigsandwich.co where we do a different bonus thing every week that exclusively goes up there. We do movie commentaries. We do bonus podcasts, including one covering clickbait. We do a time capsule where we talk about specific years in pop culture, and we also do a comic book club. So to give you a hint of what that might be, we've taken an excerpt from our episode on the Hawkeye comic, My Life as a Weapon. There's going to be some sweet-ass animations here that Eric did. Lawrence has done an amazing edit. You're going to love it. And if you do love it, feel free to head over to bigsandwich.co. It's like our private Patreon. There's a huge back catalogue of stuff you might be interested in. Also, Caravan of Garbage goes up there. In addition to the recap reviews we're doing for the Hawkeye TV series. That's why this video is going up. It's all brand synergy. It all comes together. Check it out if you are keen. Thank you so much. Let's all enjoy this video together.
Hello and welcome everyone to the second episode of the Big Sandwich Classic Comic Book Club, where every time we do the podcast, we deep dive into a classic comic book.
Every time, that's right.
Every single time. And last time we talked about Batman Year One by Frank Miller.
A reinvention of the character in a way, wouldn't you say?
I would absolutely say that. And this time around, we're like, well, we did a DC comic book. Let's do a Marvel comic book. And we sort of went back and forth on what we could possibly do. And then we eventually were like, let's do like a modern day classic.
Yes, let's do a modern day classic.
Which I think maybe perhaps people haven't read because of what they think of the character in popular culture and movies and such.
He may have had some influence, some small influence on that also.
No.
We mock him mercilessly.
It's all in fun.
It's all in fun and jest. He's got some good arrows. He should have more trick arrows in the movies and stuff, don't you think?
He's got so many trick arrows though.
Yeah,
in the
but
movies and stuff.
it's like explosions and
it's mostly
and
explosions.
USB sticks.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. Sometimes he has the shoot down the helicarrier USB stick. I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
God, he must be a very good shot because
I think that's the idea, isn't it?
No,
He's
I
a very
know,
good shot.
but I mean, just even beyond that, because you'd have to determine which way is the correct way for the USB stick to go.
Yeah.
And you'd have to factor in the arrow's probably going to spin. But anyway, we're talking about Hawkeye.
We are talking about Hawkeye. Well, in particular, Volume 1 of My Life as a Weapon. You read the entire thing, though.
I did. There's 22 issues.
Yes.
Written by Matt Fraction, who turns out, bit of a scoop, not his actual real name.
What's his real name?
Matt Fritchman.
Why did he change it? It's
His Fraction's cool. It's
I guess
cool.
like fraction, like math.
Yeah, exactly.
Math.
Yeah.
Math fraction.
Math Fraction. God damn. Well, okay, somebody add him. Why aren't you Math Fraction?
Yeah. It's also David. We looked it up. It's AJA. Some people say Aja. Some people say Aja. There's another. So we apologize. We genuinely looked into it for like 10 minutes and everybody said different things.
Yes. We're going to mostly talk about My Life as a Weapon, which is the first 5 issues of the series, which has been collected into a trade paperback. But later on in the series, 2 of the characters go their separate ways and the issues alternate between Clint Barton, Hawkeye, and Kate Bishop, also Hawkeye, as one stays in New York and one goes to LA, and they alternate on like their various different adventures. And Annie Wu takes over the art for Kate Bishop's adventures.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, it's like a 22-issue arc.
Yeah.
And it's a full, complete story. You don't have to know anything about Hawkeye beyond that he's an archer and he's in the Avengers, but what does he do when he's not in the Avengers? That's the entire premise of this, is he is a guy who is skilled enough to be in the Avengers despite the fact he doesn't have any superhuman powers or an armored flying suit. He's just a guy who's a pretty good shot and a good fighter and kind of an idiot.
Yeah.
And how does he spend his free time? Because they can't be saving the universe every day.
No. So this kind of opens and really sets the tone for what kind of character he is if you're not familiar. And he's different again from the movie character, soon to be TV show character.
Yeah. Funny you mention that because we don't have a lot of backstory on the movie version of the character.
He's got a family and stuff.
Yeah, but prior to that, like we know, say his, friend and partner Black Widow, she started out in Soviet intelligence as part of this Black Widow program, and she got, trained to be a deadly weapon and blah, blah, blah. But we don't really know anything about movie Hawkeye because this series sort of leans heavily on the fact that, he had kind of a bad childhood and he was a carny.
He knows all the carny tricks.
Yeah, and he's kind of started out as a criminal and then sort of he changed his ways and joined the Avengers. Yeah. Is that part of the MCU version of Hawkeye? I don't know if it is.
Not that we've been aware of. The only thing we know about his background is the
Budapest.
Budapest, thank you. When he first appears in Thor, he goes to grab a gun and then he he grabs a bow and arrow.
Yes.
Which maybe that's the first time he picked one up.
Maybe. And then a big arrow with a boxing glove on the end.
Yeah. But what I like about this comic is how it opens, you get the sense that straight away that, this guy doesn't have like a good power set and he's not indestructible because he's just immediately like all his bones are broken and he's hospitalized. Yeah. Like it starts that way.
In every issue, I think maybe they changed it up a little, but every issue in the initial run starts with him, like he's got an internal narration and it's okay. This looks bad.
Yeah. And I didn't even realize that until a few issues in. I'm like, they're doing that thing that I hate.
This feels like, do you hate it, really?
Well, a lot of the times, because a lot of shows will open like that, they're like, you might be wondering.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of shows, this series does feel very much like maybe like a 1970s or 80s cop show.
Definitely.
Like it feels like maybe Magnum PI
Yes.
or something like that, where that's very much a deliberate stylistic choice there.
And the art style definitely helps with that as well.
And it's
quite
it's
simplistic.
kind of like this idea. He's like Magnum PI. He's a guy he's got some skills. He's got charisma.
Got some thrills.
But he's in over his head a lot of the time,
Yeah.
which I enjoy a lot. Because I mean, this wouldn't be as fun with Thor. You know why? Because he could just lightning bolt everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And if they did use Thor and they depowered him, that's not as fun either, is it? Like he's not any less skilled than he normally
That's
is.
true. He would not. Yeah, that's
Like,
absolutely right.
You take Tony Stark out of his suit, he's not Iron Man. And I guess if you take away his bow and arrow, he's not Hawkeye, but he can still. He's got some other stuff.
Well, that's the
going
thing.
on.
As we learn in this, that his kind of ethos is anything can be a weapon.
Yes.
If you need it to be, kind of thing. So
like a
take away,
lamp.
you can take away his bows and arrows, but he can use a brick or a coin or really or a playing card, really anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's got a bit of that bullseye about him. What struck me from the beginning of this is like, what are his motivations? Like, why is he doing any of this? And I think it does a good job of kind of, without explicitly telling you, showing how his personal life and his actions kind of reflect who he is in the Avengers, how he's trying to do good, but he's just mostly like, give me a minute. Like,
Yeah, right. Yes,
there's a lot of...
Yeah.
Like how there's a moment where, gangsters are trying to buy out the building for
Oh yeah, so the
reasons.
plot of this ultimately is that again he's not with the Avengers for the most part in this series, but he has acquired some money. It's not really explained why until later, or how rather until later. But
it's a lot.
It's a lot of money, and he encounters a sort of a rundown tenement building in New York City. A fun sort of cast of characters who live there, and he's like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy out this building and sort of protect the residents. And it turns out that the former landlord and the person he's getting in the way of is connected to some sort of Eastern European mobsters.
Dracula Mafia. Or
Yeah,
whatever he
very
calls
much
it.
so. Yeah, and so he has to use his various skills to navigate those guys, and also just just hang out with the residents, and it's very fun.
And they don't initially take him very seriously. Though they seem to know who he is, but they're not really that kind of bothered by him until he opens up his arsenal of abilities. So you mentioned that car chase, the Magnum PI thing. My favorite issue of this is this Italian Job-esque bullet Magnum PI chase. I think it's issue 3, where he's got a bunch of different arrows in the car and they're being chased by Mini Coopers.
Yeah, that's absolutely so there is an issue in which, because he is Clint Barton, the first Hawkeye, is the mentor to Kate Bishop, the second Hawkeye, who is probably almost certainly a better shot than him. She is kind of naturally what he has, aspired to be for a long time. She's got more skills and she's kind of arrogant. He's trying to be a mentor, but again, he's not very good at being a mentor.
Yeah.
He's trying to index and sort of categorize all these stupid trick arrows that he doesn't really use anymore.
Yeah.
And so after sort of, this romantic liaison with this woman, he leaves all his dumb trick arrows in her car. And then when she gets kidnapped, or when he attempts to save her from a kidnapping, he gets involved in this crazy chase and he has to employ all his stupid arrows.
And often he doesn't really know what they're going to do before he fires them.
Because he hasn't marked them in any way. He sort of has to.
Yeah, like he can sort of tell by the weight. He's like, I think this is the boulders one, and whatever. But I've written down a few that I liked. So there's a boulders one, there's the acid one, there's a putty one, there's a boomerang one, which ends up saving the day in the end. They're really fun. I wish they would do more of it in the movies, which I think they might at some point.
Well, I hope so in the TV series.
Because that's what it's for.
Because
isn't
again,
it?
I guess the idea, the premise with some of this is, old, comic book tropes are kind of kitsch and dumb.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if you did have a boxing glove arrow. Imagine if you did have a boomerang arrow. What's the point, kind of thing?
Yeah.
And so they're delivering with a nod and a wink and being like, well, actually, they kind of come in handy. So I guess
if it's all you've got,
you could very easily translate that to a TV series.
so.
Like maybe he gets cut off from his normal supply lines, or Shield were building his arrows and he doesn't have any more, so he has to go back to an old storage locker with a bunch of dumb 1980s arrows in it. That would be fun.
Because also in the movie, I mean, we were allowed to go back to the. I mean, I know. It's a
No,
book
we're
club.
not. We're not allowed.
I think you see it more in It's in the Avengers movies more. Well, they're the only movies he's in, really. He's what is called his quiver.
Yes.
It's got like a thing you twist to get like a certain arrow.
Yeah, it's mechanized. Yeah, his bow has a little like trackpad on it, and he can sort of manipulate it various ways, and it loads an arrow into the quiver, and then it selects an arrowhead, and he can sort of do it that way. Yeah.
Does this get into why he does bow and arrow stuff when he does? I mean, it's the Carney thing, I assume.
It is the Carney thing. Yeah, yeah.
But like, is there anything beyond that? Like, what's his reasoning for it? I mean, why have 12 arrows when you could have
100 bullets?
100 bullets, yeah.
Not really. No, it's just his signature thing, I think. Yeah.
Fair enough. I also like how they portray the archery in this. You kind of, when they pull back the arrow, they'll do the things like you breathe, you focus, you tense the muscles in your back to like, and you kind of get the idea of how they kind of operate or how an archer might operate. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Also, they're not infallible, which I think I appreciate in this series. Like, even though they are technically the best archers in the world, circumstances will conspire to ruin their aim and their whole deal, which is fun. Did we speak about the art? What I think is interesting about this art is that it is quite similar to Batman Year One.
It did remind me of that, yeah.
Right?
I mean, there's a bit more colour, more purple specifically.
There's a lot of purple, yeah. What I would say is the art is very simple. Well, not simple. It gets across emotion. It certainly it's staged really well. It certainly gives you a sense of motion.
There's good pace to it.
Yeah, like it's hard. I think it's kind of hard to illustrate, say, a fist fight and make it look dynamic and interesting, and you can see the skills that are being employed and that sort of stuff. And I think that is portrayed really, really well in this.
It's almost like those 1960s kind of Marvel comics or any comic from that era, except done in a more dynamic way. Like they're pretty comparable, I feel.
But it is kind of, it is more sketchy. It's not photorealistic. It's kind of, more stylized.
I like that. Because the 6th issue though that we get in the first block, it's a Young Avengers story, which the art is completely different.
Yeah, right.
And that was quite jarring for me because that's how the first volume wraps up. I'm like, I don't like this as much. Like it kind of threw me a little bit. I still enjoyed the issue, but I think when you go to photorealistic, if you don't nail it, it's weird.
Oh yeah, especially
I'm trying to think of an example of that, but
but the thing about that is often it's photo reference.
Yes,
and if some artists. There's a strange line, and it's some artists will photo reference, but sometimes if they don't have, say, a pose or a
face
from the model that they were using, they just have to switch to another model.
Yeah,
and then so a character can look different from page to page or even panel to panel.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was there was an absolute night in the early 2000s. There was an absolute deluge of artists just doing.
Do you think that was a digital thing? Because people are like,
it might have been. Yeah, and there was just this absolute deluge of people just doing photo referencing from movies and porn. And stuff like that.
Who was that guy who did that? I can't remember.
There was Greg Land and there was maybe another artist.
Yes.
Both of whom were good artists on their own, but just decided to do this tracing thing.
Do you think it was a stylistic choice or do you think it was this is much easier?
I think it might have been that, I don't know. Yeah. Because, expressions are difficult.
Yes, they are.
Hands, all that sort of, a lot of stuff is very complicated. And if you can just be like, I'll just trace this look of surprise.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Exactly. Wow, I hate to cut this short, but every minute that ticks by costs me money. And quite frankly, I'm all about big business. You probably know that about me. The rest of this episode is obviously available at bigsandwich.co. I should also preface that by saying they don't all look like this. They're like 30-minute podcasts, if that makes sense. Again, there's a bunch of stuff up there if you do want to check out movie commentaries, an early version of our podcast, The Weekly Planet, early videos. Again, bigsandwich.co if you do want to check it out. Thank you so much for watching this, though. My goodness. It's great to have you. I'm not really about big business. Surprise. I'm all about how long people watch a video for. That's what I'm about. All right, I'll catch you later. Goodbye.